Welcome to Unpack the NEWMAC, where we dive into the inner workings of the conference, the stories behind the stats, and the prestigious awards that make the NEWMAC a powerhouse in Division III. We'll celebrate the academic excellence of our student athletes, the incredible leadership of our coaches and administrators, and break down the path to becoming national champions. It's a lot to unpack, and we're here to do it. It's time to unpack the NEWMAC.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unpack the NEWMAC. My name is Lindsay Colbert, and today I am joined by, you could say, the royal family of Division III baseball. We have Brian Casey, Kevin Casey, and Brendan Casey here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So I have to get everybody straight. We have Brian Casey, who is the head baseball coach at Coast Guard. We have Kevin Casey, who is the head baseball coach at Johnson & Wales, and Brendan, who is the head baseball coach at WPI. Obviously, for those of you who don't know you, your father is a baseball legend in the New England area. John Casey, he was at Tufts for, I believe, 38 years. American Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Famer. He won over 750 games at Tufts. So I really want to start there and allow you three to kind of talk about the influence your dad had on you when you were growing up. So maybe we'll throw it to Brian as the oldest to kind of kick it off here.
Sure, yeah. So we all sort of grew up in the dugout, I guess you could say. Probably wasn't a weekend that went by that we weren't on the Tufts campus in some capacity. So back when we were younger, he was actually coaching football and baseball. So those old school D3 athletic departments where you're coaching multiple sports and wearing many different hats. So he was a football coach for 17 years. So we were there for football games on Saturdays in the fall, and then in the spring we were there for practices and games. And we all had our shot at being the bat boy at some point for Tufts games. I remember sort of a highlight, I think, for Kevin and I, because we're both born in the spring. We would sort of get to go on maybe a road trip game for our birthday every year with my dad and the baseball team. We used to do the 7:00 game at Eastern Con. So sort of a chance to stay up past our bedtime and go to a game and all that type of stuff, and grab some McDonald's on the way home with the team. So, he obviously had a huge impact on all of us. And I think for the coaching side of it, just exposure to college baseball at an early age and being the dugout, be amongst the team, chance to have a bunch of older brothers, so to speak. And, obviously a lot of really good memories, being around college baseball early on.
Brendan and Kevin, you agree with that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just touch on the fact that, kind of all his influence obviously led us to doing what we're doing right now, right? And, I think the bonus part, and I get to see it with my two little boys right now, is when it's kind of a cool age to be around the college athlete, right? I think it's that final growth period from young man to man, and to be able to have it and grow up around it. I mean, those dudes were more popular than the Red Sox in our household. And when they came over, those are the guys that we wanted to emulate, right? And I get to see it now when I bring my 4-year-old to practice. He goes home, and next thing you know, he's taking, tee shots as my first baseman, right? And I think it's a cool experience. And he had a ton of influence on it, and obviously it's kind of led us down the same path.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. Tufts baseball was kind of like, it was an extension of our family, right? He brought us in, made us feel a part of the team, right? Brian said it. We all were bat boys at some point. We went on trips with the team, everything like that. And then I think, one thing that he did is he always separated, right? He was always our dad. He was never coach at home, right? So when he came to our baseball games, came to our football games, soccer, basketball, he was there as a supporting father and not trying to coach us as we go, right? He always trusted our coaches to coach us and be dad.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I actually talked yesterday to Brian and Declan Walmsley, who are Brian's a head basketball coach at Wheaton, and his son plays for Salve. And when he said early on, he decided he did not want to coach his son. He just thought it was important for other voices to be heard. when you were growing up, you just said, Brendan, that he separated a little bit. Was he ever kind of like your little league coach, or was he kind of tried to step aside?
He coached 1 year of in-town youth basketball with me, and that lasted 1 year. It was, I mean, it was a blast. It was fun. That was my one experience, playing for him. Brian and Kevin, were lucky enough to play for him at Tufts in college. But, that guy, he's as competitive can be. He was just as competitive, with that youth in-town basketball game as he was on, Saturdays with Tufts. Now he was always about making it fun for us kids and everything like that, but you knew he wanted to win. He was dialing up pick and roll plays, everything like that, trying to find a way. We drafted all the biggest kids in the town. He was trying to find size. It was a fun experience.
Can't take the competitor out,
No.
So obviously, three of you, you're kind of built-in competitors right there. You have another brother as well, a younger brother, Chris Casey, who I'm sure was a little bit the object of your competitiveness a bit there. I'm the youngest of four, so I can only imagine. But four brothers, I'm sure the competitiveness was off the charts. How was that growing up, that experience between the four of you?
I mean, I'll just kick off. Like, I think there's been a lot of conversation about, getting the competitiveness and everything from my own man. I think you got to meet my mom. She's about as competitive as they come, and she hates losing. So I think a lot of that influence comes from her as well. But I think, I would say we were your four typical boys. I think depending on what the season was the sport we were playing. In the fall, it was football, soccer, basketball, hockey. In the wintertime, a lot of wiffle ball, a lot of stuff like that in the backyard in the springtime and summertime. We grew up in a pretty cool neighborhood where a lot of kids were around as well. So it made for awesome teams and stuff like that. But a lot of that was that inner competition within the house and trying to stay out of trouble. So kind of being thrown out in the backyard and having to figure it out ourselves.
Yeah, we sort of had a built-in two versus two competition. Usually it was me and Chris versus Brendan and Kevin in basically anything we played. And, we're all fairly close in age. Kevin and I are 2 years apart. Brendan and Kevin are 3 years apart. So it was always some of the things where we were playing around similar times. The age gap was close enough to sort of make everything competitive. We won't reveal the lifetime records or anything like that, but we certainly bragging rights with absolutely everything we did. Kevin's right. Like even sports that we might not have played, at the high school level or beyond, we were doing all of it at any point during we were growing up, and we were always keeping score. So it was a huge part of it. And one thing I'd say, like our parents threw us outside. Like if we playing video games for too long, it was shut it off, get outside and do something. So, it's sort of by nature, was bound to happen.
So Brendan mentioned that Kevin and Brian, you two got to play for your father. What was that decision making like when you were, trying to decide where you're going to go to school? Were you a little bit nervous to go play for your father? Was that kind of a pro for you, or?
Probably lack of other options for me, to be honest, Lindsay. I think from recruiting was a lot different back then. I don't know if I had a ton of options, so it was sort of by default. No, all kidding aside, obviously, unbelievable educational opportunity. Having grown up around, being familiar with the program, we were younger. There was obviously, it'd be really cool to come here and play someday. The recruiting dynamic and father-son versus player-coach dynamic was obviously the interesting piece. And, looking back at it, and we've talked about it, and he's even said himself, like intentionally, making it known that we weren't playing because we were the coach's son. Like we had to earn it and probably then some to make sure that there was no, lines being drawn or blurred from that standpoint. So, very grateful for that in a lot of ways, just because you felt like, you were one of the guys, you're one of the team. Like I know that, Kevin could speak to it because he came in 2 years after me. We had a really good group of guys that were in that locker room, when I got there. And then the guys that I got a chance to play with for a couple of years and were my classmates, like, just being one of the guys, like we didn't hold back, busting his chops for stuff that he said in the dugout or the locker room at practice. And we all had our impersonations of coach, just like anybody else. And it was a lot of fun and some really rewarding experiences, down the line, that we can share, that not everybody gets a chance to share with their old man because they weren't as college coach when you're playing at that level. So it has its challenges. There was some good funny stories that came along with it, but overall it was a great experience.
So Brian, you graduated and then went on to coach. So then you ended up coaching your brother as well alongside your father. What was that dynamic like?
It was a very simple rule from the old man at that time, being the assistant coach for his time. He said, "Don't coach him, leave him alone." And Kevin and I we butted heads quite a bit, fair to say, back in the college days a little bit. And obviously he was an extremely competitive player, and having gone from being an infielder playing next to him to then coaching the infielders, we kept it very much infield instruction, and on the offensive side, it was leave alone. He was a better hitter than I was anyway, so probably not a ton I could give him to help anyways. But let the other coaches coach him on that side of the ball, and just keep it basic and don't try to be anything more than just a coach. So we kept that part separate a little bit.
Probably a good idea. But all three of you at some point had a chance to coach alongside your father. Obviously, Kevin, you still are, but if each of you could kind of give us an idea of maybe some of those lessons that you learned that pertain to coaching that you kind of carry along with you, that your dad gave you.
I mean, I'll just start off kind of from ground one. I think he told us, all of us, when we played for him, and every player that played for him, is, leave the place better than you found it. And I think that kind of pertains to everything he did, right? And I think it stretches across the board with the programs that we have now taken over, and that, one day when the exit comes is be able to look back and be proud of what you did, and say you moved it forward. Right. You've been able to put something on that has made it better. And you can break that down all the way to an individual practice as well as a 40-year career. But it was his mantra all 40 years up there at that place. And I think there's generations of athletes that have played underneath them that could tell you that they're better people than they were from day one when they entered to when they exited. And it's a no-brainer that the place is way better over 40-year career, and it's a special place that he built. So that's just something, I remind our guys down here, that's our number one goal, is by the end of this year is be a little bit better than we were last year. Leave it a little better, leave your mark on the program, and be proud of what you put your name next to.
Yeah, there's a lot of X's and O's stuff that certainly he's had his influence on us. I think, now being a head coach, I think the biggest takeaways that I have from it are, being accountable. One of the things that he instilled in us was you don't ask players to do stuff that you're not willing to do yourself. So, if you're asking them to be there at 5:45 a.m. for a morning practice inside up here in New England, like you're there and you're ready to go to match the energy or set the tone. Telling us to, earn everything, even coming in as coaches early, we had to earn everything. You want to coach more, you got to show me that you deserve to coach that aspect. You got to be prepared. You got to know what you're doing, because if I'm going to trust you to coach this group of players or this many hitters or what have you, I got to be able to trust you to do that. So, instilling us to be ready, be prepared, and work with guys, and then caring for players more than just players, caring for them as people. Part of our job is to, bigger picture wise, is to prepare them for life after baseball, life after graduation, making sure that we're using baseball as a way to do that. So, those are three big ones that I take from it. Now being a head coach and being in this spot, like, these are things that we need to be a part of our program here.
Yeah. And then I'll jump in, two additional things that I think he kind of imparted on us was he always told us to be ourselves, right? And coach as ourselves, not try to be anyone else, not try to be him, be yourself, right? The kids notice, when you're genuine, right? And then the second thing, it's another one of his sayings that he used to say all the time: simple is hard, right? And he goes, sometimes as a coach, if you're at your best, you're making everything simple for your players, right? Which sometimes can be a challenge for a coach because, you know, you may have a little bit of ego there where you want to seem like, you know, you're the smartest one in the room and you're going over everything. And that tends to complicate it more than anything, right? It's, you know, no matter what you're teaching, simplify it as much as you possibly can. The kids will understand and just let them play.
It's great advice all around. I have to ask, Kevin, did you like win a bet? Like, how come Dad gets to coach with you? How'd that happen?
He lost the bet.
Or lost a bet there?
No, it's been I compared it to when Tom Brady departed New England. I was the quickest one to jump in. I was Tampa Bay. We're a little bit further south than he was, so I was selling the warm weather and being on the lovely coastlines of Providence, Rhode Island, and we were able to draw him in and hook him. So he's got great quality of life. I'm sure he's going to watch this podcast and it's going to only make his head a little bit bigger where he'll be offering, you know, wanting a raise for being a top pitching coach in the area and all that stuff, but it's all good.
I'm sure you appreciate every moment of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Just quickly, I think all three of you spent the majority of your time at Division III. Brendan, you had a little departure there for a while, but what's so special to you about being in Division III? It's very unique, obviously.
I think it's the athletes and their organic love for the game, right? I think, you know, Brian and I were lucky enough to get some work up at the Division I level where there's, you know, the draft and all that stuff and there's scholarship money. And, you know, I think we're starting to see that the level of baseball isn't much different. But you do have an organic passion for sport. There is an athletic scholarship that might be tugging you one way or the other. And it also provides a decent balance to be able to do what you want to do from an academic standpoint while also chasing your dream on the fields as well. So I've always loved it because I think you have to love the game to be playing at this level because you don't necessarily get all the perks and benefits. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes this level can be hard and you have to get creative. So that's always been my big love for it.
I've always looked at it a little bit different, Lindsay, you know, as a coach. Like, I've only wanted to coach at places that care about baseball, obviously being biased and being a baseball coach. So the level has really never mattered to me. You know, I would even tell guys, like, on the recruiting side of things, like, you want to go to a place that cares about how much time you're going to invest in the thing that you're interested in doing. So, you know, there's Division III experiences that are better than Division I, Division II, NAIA, JUCO, what have you experiences, and they all have their value. You know, I'm coaching at this level, you know, because this is where I've found a home that, you know, we care about baseball and some of the things that are built into the fabric here match what we're trying to do on a baseball program standpoint. So there's some synergy there with all those things. So never really worried about the level as much as, you know, we put a lot of time, as Kev mentioned, you know, you sort of make this, you know, part of your family. So, you know, it's got to fit, right? And, you know, that just happens to be at the Division III level where we're at right now and loving it. So, you know, it's more about, you know, does this place align with your values? And this place just has. This level has for me.
I mean, I'll just echo it. The kids care, right? And you're around them every day. You know, Division III baseball, I mean, those kids care just as much as the, you know, guys if they were playing Division I, right? They love the game. They love competing, right? They crush it in the classroom and everything like that. But a lot of times, you know, this athletics part, it's a passion for them, right? It's their balance, right? It's their getaway from, you know, the academics and everything like that. Their ability to, you know, turn their mind off for, you know, a 2-hour practice or, you know, a Saturday doubleheader where they can kind of get away from, you know, that academic grind and just enjoy themselves having fun doing something that they've done their entire life, you know, playing and competing, right? I mean, I think we all do this and it makes it easier to do this when the kids care. And I'm telling you, they really do care at this level. They care about their development. They want to be really good. They want to be coached, right? So it just makes the job really fun, you know?
Yeah, there's definitely something special about the D3 athlete as one myself and Brian and Kevin as well. Um, you know, you all played. Now you're all back coaching in the same region, playing a lot of the same teams, playing each other. How often are you able to chat with each other throughout the season? Are you kind of bouncing anything off of each other, or do you kind of try to keep that separate?
It's funny, Lindsay. I joke when all three of us are in this region. I just said there must have been a coaching shortage at some point for all three of us to get head jobs in the same area. So, yeah, no, I would say there's a fair amount of communication as we go forward. I would say I talk to both these guys at least once a week, once we're in season, for a variety of reasons, either just checking in to see how they're doing, who they played, how good are they, bouncing ideas off each other. I think there's a fair amount of that, whether it's a quick text or a phone call when we're, commuting in and out of work to, just check in and see how everyone's doing. I think that's kind of the cool part of our dynamic is that it's not just family stuff you're checking in on. It's relatable work stuff, and we're all going through the same stuff. So it's just more sounding boards for us to or resources to use. It's been really kind of a cool piece of our family dynamic.
So, obviously you have the same father. You have the similar upbringing, obviously. Does your coaching style, is it very similar between the three of you as well? Or have you kind of tried to branch off and do some different things?
I mean, I think it's probably got a lot of common stuff in it. I think we've all kind of taken unique tracks, right? I think, Brian coming out of school, if I can remember correctly, was working for a short stint with the LPGA, and realized like, hey, I'm not good at sales. I got to get into coaching. And he started right at his alma mater, at Tufts. For Brendan and I, both of our coaching careers started on different staffs to reunite back at Tufts to then move on. So I think you kind of, just like any other coach, right? I think it's, if you got some answers to the test, you're gonna take those with you. And I was fortunate enough to work for some awesome coaches during my career. Very lucky in a lot of ways, with Coach Pine, Coach Case, and then obviously Coach Glav at Tufts. But I would like to say when Coach Case came down to Johnson and Wales, he saw some common stuff from the Tufts baseball program, and he probably saw some stuff from Northeastern and all the way back to our Daniel Webster days. I think each spot gives you different unique challenges, which are going to give you some different answers, and allow you to be as flexible as you can as you move along. And I know when I play these guys, they're definitely not using the sign system we used to use at Tufts, because I've been trying to pick their signs for quite a bit, and it's definitely not those ones.
Yeah, you got to switch it up. So I asked kind of the best piece of advice that you received from your dad, but how about from each other?
When I have the conversation with these guys, I think the best thing I get from them is how simple they keep it, and how basic it is, like how the answer, we basically turn ourselves into pretzels trying to figure it out. And, and that's the nice thing about having someone who's going through similar experiences, but may not be seeing it the same way you are. And there's, hey, just do this, or, hey, it's this easy, the simplicity with which they answer the questions just makes it a lot easier, and the same way you kind of use your assistant coaches, but we're all so close to it that having that outside perspective can be extremely valuable. I'll say this from a stylistic standpoint. My two brothers, I think, do a really good job coaching the offensive side of the ball. That asking some of those questions and getting some of the feedback that I get from them, makes you feel like either we're on the right track or we might need a different way of doing something internally to help us get to where we want to get to. And sometimes how simple that answer can be. These guys are really good about being a soundboard for me.
I mean, I'll just add on that there's not a lot of people probably in your life, but these two guys are two people that are going to tell me what I need to hear, and not necessarily what I want to hear. And having that in a season when someone could tell you, hey, no, it's you. You gotta make the adjustment. It ain't the players, it ain't the coaches, it's you. That sometimes is the best piece of advice, being able to look in the mirror and say, hey, yeah, I trust that guy, and he's telling me it's me that's going nuts. So they've always been a sounding board on that, guys that I can trust and depend on. And if we can get some information on an opponent, we'll try to get some information on an opponent.
How about you, Brendan? Anything you take from your big brothers?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, when I first got the head job at WPI, I mean, I was calling these two all the time, kind of running through, what are some things that you guys did initially when you first took over your programs that went really well for you? What's one thing that you wish you did? What are some of the things that, maybe necessarily didn't work out as well? And just kind of hearing out all those things and just trying to fit it to, what fits what I was trying to do. Right. And I mean, I think, the biggest advantage that, we have as a family of, all of us in baseball, right? Brian, Kevin, and my father coaching college baseball, Chris in the high school ranks coaching baseball, is we're constantly having conversations about the game, right? And it forces you to look at things differently. It forces you to have like baseball. There's so many unique things that happen all the time. You can never really plan it out, script it, predict it, right? There's a unique play that happens in almost every single game. And then all of a sudden you start talking about that with each other, and it kind of expands, your baseball knowledge, right? And I think we're lucky enough that, we have this extensive resource in our family, so it's just like, all the conversations that we have aren't centered around baseball. I think if we did that, we drive ourselves crazy. But when we do have those conversations, it's a group of guys that can sit down and, respect each other's opinions, and you're always able to pull something, right, that you never thought of. And we all think a little bit differently. And that's why I think it really works out for us.
That's great that you have each other. I think that Brian and Brendan, you have to play each other because you're in the NEWMAC. Kevin, I see that I think both teams are on your schedule or have been in the past. Is that something that you're kind of looking forward to playing each other, or do you not like playing each other? How does that dynamic work?
Love it.
I mean,
I'll start because Kevin was the head coach before for Brendan and I. So when I got the job here, we tried to make sure we got Johnson Wales on the schedule, and not necessarily because we wanted to play, my brother and the storyline and that sort of back and forth. We wanted to play good programs and good teams. Like we wanted to kind of get this thing fast tracked a little bit. The NEWMAC is obviously a great baseball conference. We're going to get our tests there, but non-conference wise, we wanted to get out and play some of the better teams in the region, and what Kevin's done there is you want to get those guys on the schedule just from a competitive standpoint. Obviously we'll see the impact of what MPI has now, but before that, like the strength of schedule component and if you want to be a good team, you got to play other good teams and beat other good teams. So that was very much a part of the calculus for us was, hey, this is where we want to get to. We got to play other good teams that are doing the same thing and see where we are and where we've got to get to. So, that was probably more of it than anything else. It just so happens to be that he runs a really good program, and let's get him on the schedule. There are some bragging rights that show itself during family vacations in the summer. And we're not shy about sharing what happened in each game, when we get to those family moments, especially when we try to get under each other's skin a little bit. But from a scheduling standpoint, it's very much like, we're trying to play the better teams in the region. So he's definitely one of them.
When you get that schedule, do you kind of like circle those games like a little bit, like a little extra fire those game days, or are you kind of dreading them a little bit?
I have told our guys, like, hey, it's not brother versus brother. It's Johnson Wales versus Coast Guard, or it's WPI versus Coast Guard. It's not, don't make it anything more than it is. It's still 27 outs and we're going to play them. Don't buy into any of that type of stuff. It is, I will tell you, it is a really cool thing. And it's probably, a better experience for our wives and our family and our parents and stuff like that to get a chance to be sort of, maybe outside of my own man, but be in the stands watching it and experiencing that. Because in the middle, we're trying to beat them just like they're anybody else. But it is a cool dynamic. But we tell our guys it's no more than less, just like every other game we play.
I mean, I'll assume that your wives are rooting for you, but what about like mom, dad? What's they wearing like, the split shirts?
I will tell you, there was a story to best describe my mom. Brian and I even go back to assistant coaches. When he was the pitching coach at William and Mary, I was the assistant coach up at Northeastern. And I remember a home weekend series. And my mom, even though we had home bleachers and this and that, still believed in bringing her beach chair and about 15 blankets, stuff to sew with and everything. So her getting into the ballpark and getting to her seat took quite some time. And I remember being in the dugout, just keeping an eye on her watching, and she was counting the seats behind home plate to try to sit perfectly in the middle between the two of us. And I grabbed my phone real quick and sent her a text. And I said, just get on the William and Mary side. I know he's your favorite. It's all right. I won't get offended by it. But no, I echo what Brian says. I think it's, a lot of it is directed on playing good baseball teams. And, we were fortunate enough to be in a good situation that made that happen. And we continue to play that. I know we had an opportunity to go play Coast Guard this fall. And it was a great opportunity to go out and play a good college baseball team. I think any good coach is going to take those opportunities, especially in the fall. And I think, what they're doing down there, what WPI is going to be doing in the NEWMAC, it's pretty awesome. With already a very strong baseball conference. And it's a conference that we've kind of tried to go head to head against in the non-conference as much as we can, because a lot of those dudes are in the mix of it at the end. And I think that's what we're trying to get to. So it's been pretty cool, but watching our families kind of navigate through the process of, being able to deal with the winner and then being able to deal with the loser after the game is always kind of the most unique. And most of the time it's like, hey, just leave both of them alone for about a half hour and then they'll all get over it. So.
Yeah, I have to ask if you can give us maybe a little insight on the, the opposing coaches, that kind of handshake after the game. Is that strictly business? Is it like, hey, bro, like, good game, but leave me alone? Or is it like, let's chat later? What's that vibe like after the game?
There's probably a really strong attempt at humility.
Yeah.
But I would say it probably lies to do with probably how the game was played. We're all probably in that same boat. Well, if we played well, like, we can probably swallow it a little bit better. If we don't play so hot, then it's probably a little bit easier to get to that boiling point. But obviously at the end, like, good win. Hang in there, you guys will be fine. Like, some of those type of things. But just before it goes for the family, like, there is a fair amount of buying Coast Guard or WPI or Johnson Wales paraphernalia for the opposing coaches' kids. So I would say that my kids do have a fair amount of red and blue stuff that aren't Coast Guard, and I know that we've made an effort to fill their stockings around holiday time with Coast Guard gear as well. So we're trying to get to each other at some point.
It's the ultimate betrayal right there.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, obviously all three of you have already had a lot of success. If each of you could kind of pinpoint maybe something in your brothers' careers that have made you proud, what would those moments be?
I feel like I'm getting looked at, so I'll go first. But I remember a couple years back. I was an assistant coach at Northeastern, William and Mary. He was the pitching coach there. I believe they lost early on in the tournament, and then came all the way back. And just watching their team come all the way back, watching the way their pitching staff performed up against the wall kind of throughout all of that. And then they went on to a regional, I believe, against Carlos Rodon and NC State, and were just as competitive in that. And, all the work that you see your brothers put in, obviously, when they can get moments of success like that, they reached it. I know for Brendan, him becoming a head coach, I got to share the dugout with him quite a bit over the summertime. And I knew he was well deserving and antsy for it. And for him to get his first opportunity, I think that's always the toughest part is breaking in. Initially, you're selling a lot of stuff that you say, hey, this is my vision for. But I got to work a lot with Brendan, and I know his passion for the players, his passion for the game. He's probably going to be the best out of all of us when it's all said and done. And when he was able to get his job at WPI, I was obviously very stoked for that.
It's a lot of pressure, Brendan.
Yeah, he's buttering me up.
What do you think, Brendan? You got to watch, your older brothers. Is there anything in particular that you kind of sticks out as proud moments for you?
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to go, watch Kev and his team, make runs through the GNAC, playing the NCAA tournament. You seeing them in those games was always fun. Watching those guys play, watching them compete. And then I think to Brian now this past year, just a couple of years in at Coast Guard, and he's got that program towards the top of the league, tying for the regular season conference championship last year was impressive with a young group as well. And it's like, as much as I want to be at the top of the NEWMAC, seeing him up there was pretty cool, right? And I like following, I like tracking their programs, everything like that. I'm a fan of their programs when we're not playing them. I'm always checking, hoping that everything's going well with them. And then when we're playing them, I hope, they hit terrible days.
Lindsay, as the old star said, I got a chance to see these guys all the way through. Kevin getting that team GNAC wise, we make sure that we're at the playoff games, for the first couple of years. We were done, so no excuse to that. We can go down and watch his team play and hoist the trophy. Whether it was on a stream when they were up in Maine for a tournament or last year when they were home. It's really cool to watch the culmination of all that work, and with those guys getting a championship that team, quite frankly, deserved for how they played. Brendan, it's interesting. I was extremely happy for him, but it sucked for me entirely. Like his first year coaching, they came down to our place and they beat us 2 out of 3. That mathematically eliminated us from the playoffs in his first year. So I was excited for him to win some games, but he knocked us out of the playoffs. So it was a bittersweet moment for me, but sort of getting a chance to see him be a head coach for the first time in a head-to-head. It's awesome. It was cool. I got over that one a little bit faster than others.
Yeah, definitely a little bittersweet, but I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to give you guys an opportunity to throw each other under the bus a little bit here. So we'll just kind of give like a who's who here. Who is more likely to argue balls and strikes with the umpires?
Brian.
I was going to say, one of us got a track record for umpire relations, so I'm happy to say it's not me.
Who's been thrown out of more games?
That's an easy one. Who are you pointing at?
Yes.
I had a feeling when I saw those questions, there was a reason why I was getting invited to the NEWMAC podcast. I am passionate. We'll leave it at that. I am passionate.
All right. So would we say Kevin's the most intense of the three?
Probably fair. Probably fair. At least easier to read emotionally, for sure.
It's not the worst thing always. How about on the flip side, which of you is maybe more easygoing, kind of the player's manager, as you would say?
I think that's easy. Brendan's probably the easiest going one of us. He's the mediator amongst most of our family stuff off the field, and I'd say he's the easiest going one of the three of us.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What about baseball IQ? Who do you think has the highest baseball IQ?
I would probably say Brian. And I think that's because me and Brendan picked up a lot more stuff naturally. He had to spend a little bit more time figuring it out. So
Maybe a backhanded compliment there, but
yeah.
Appreciate that. I thought you were going to have 3 different answers on that one.
I was going to
who's
say
best
Chris.
motivating their players?
Sorry, Lindsay, say that again.
Sorry, who's the best at motivating their players? Getting more out of their players than maybe you might otherwise.
That's a hard one. I do think watching both their teams play, both against and from being able to watch both their teams play from the stands. I think both these guys get their guys to play hard and play the game well. So kind of be able to do both. I know, just like I said, watch some of those games from the stands and then from the other dugout where you're not as invested in terms of what you're doing on your side. These guys have their guys playing really hard.
Okay, in your prime playing days, who's winning the Casey Brother Home Run Derby?
If we didn't make it just about home runs, Lindsay, I think we have a better argument. But if you saw us off a computer screen on stature, you'd be able to pick it out fairly easy. Brennan's got the most juice of the three of us for sure. He's the long ball guy, the three of us. At least with a baseball bat. Golf club might be different, but
Yeah.
How about now? You still winning, Brennan, or has that shifted as you've aged out a little bit here?
When it comes to hitting, yeah.
Still you? I like the
Yeah.
confidence. I like the
Offensively, yes. Defensively, no. Pitching wise, no.
All right, who's
still
winning the
swing-
Gold Glove then? All right. What do you got, Kevin? What are you winning?
I'm probably doing it all. I'm just going to stay humble in this moment.
There
In
you
the
go.
backyard, they used to call me the pizza man because I delivered 7 days a week. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
I like it. I like it. All right. Last little fun question here. Let's say the Red Sox call up the Casey brothers to run the organization. What role are each of you taking and why? We have a manager, a bench coach, front office, pitching coach. What do
I'd
we
love
all-
to be the bench coach. I'll sit there, hang out with the guys all day, let them make the tough decisions, and then second guess them at the end of the day.
It's perfect.
probably the best gig.
I'd
about-
probably want to be a pitching coach. I mean, just after dealing with my father and my older brother, they're never really wrong ever in life. So I just one time like to be on that side of things.
Love it. How about you, Brian? What role are you taking on?
I guess that leaves the manager position for me, so I'll take the big paycheck and I'll sit there and blame everybody else. So
There you go. That's the dream.
Yep.
All right. So we are, I think, mid-February now. Everyone started practicing. We're coming up like very quickly on opening day and spring break. Just quickly, what's everyone's season outlook this year? What are your goals? Obviously we all know the big goals, but the little goals along the way, what are those for you guys?
Yeah, I don't want to give it away too much with both these guys being on the schedule this year, Lindsay. But obviously we're same expectations every year, trying to play the best baseball we can, try to play as long as we can, get ourselves in the postseason, step one, and then see what we can do on that weekend this year. We do have a lot of guys coming back off last year's team, but we all got to start the same spot every year. So we're a couple weeks out from opening up, and right now we're just trying to get as good as we can at our process and start playing somebody else with a scoreboard. We'll take it one game at a time and see what happens. But certainly like what our guys are doing right now, but we got to be able to do it consistently for the next couple of months, which is its own challenge. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of similar. We got a older group kind of returning that have a lot of guys have been playing for a couple years now in the lineup and stuff like that. So excited for that. But obviously, just like any other year, presents a new challenge, a tough schedule right out the gate. I think there's going to be some good tests down south as well as in New England, and it's just continuing to try to be who we are. And I think, right now we probably are dealing with some inconsistencies like most teams are at this point, 3 weeks out. But I'm very fortunate. I got a great group of guys, and my goal every year is that hopefully we can help them, realize their dreams and chase it. So I know March 1st will be the first time we get to go out there and test it and get to do it. And we're looking forward to it, but we definitely need to take advantage of these next 3 weeks, no doubt.
I'm excited about this year. We have some returning production from last year, but we also got, 16 new faces on the roster. And, so it's kind of a brand new team a little bit, but what gets me excited is, going through these last couple weeks of the preseason is that, they're excited, right? They're ready to compete. They got a taste of the postseason last year, albeit a very short and not so great taste, but they want to be back, and they saw kind of what it takes to get there, and they know that they need to raise the level a little bit more, and that's what's fun and exciting, right? Every day is a day to get better, day to improve, and it's exciting going to practice every day because we got a bunch of guys in the room all pulling in the same direction, so it's exciting. I'm excited to compete again. Like these two, we're opening up March 1st. I'm not rushing to get there. We could use these next couple of weeks to keep practicing, keep getting better. But it's always fun, getting challenged and getting tested.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, all three of you, for joining us today, and I wish you good luck in your season this year.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Lindsay.
Thank you.